Welcome to Physics 2500, the first course in a year-long calculus-based physics sequence. This course will be co-taught by myself, Dr. Hood, and Dr. Krismani. Let's hear a bit about Dr. Krismani.
Hi, my name is Matteo Krismani, and I'm a new faculty member in the physics department here at CSUSB. I was born and raised in Southern California, but got my undergraduate degree at UCSC and PhD at the University of Colorado Boulder. I spent the last 2 years in DC working at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center studying the Martian atmosphere. However, when I was young, I was not looking up at the stars. I was also working with them. From 6 to 16, I was a child actor on shows like Seventh Heaven and Lizzie McGuire. When I originally went to UCSC, I hadn't taken pre-calc and had to push through bumps in the road and lots of early failures. When I took computational physics, I began to see that you didn't have to be a Newton or an Einstein to succeed in this field, and I've never stopped using these tools and skills. When I can find free time, I like to climb rocks and go camping, and have 2 dogs that are in constant need of my petting. Just like them, I'm a mutt. My mother's father escaped Germany when the SS knocked on his family's door. My father's mother is Aboriginal Australian, and our lineage has all been eradicated from history. It can be easy to feel like you're out of place in this world, particularly in this field. So if you ever need someone to chat with, my door, virtual or otherwise, is always open. Thanks for listening.
And now a little bit about myself. I grew up in Houston, just near the Johnson Space Center. So the picture on the upper left is a picture of the space shuttle above one of their transport planes flying over the Johnson Space Center. This is where the astronauts worked when they weren't on an active mission in space. So my house was back by that bayou back there. Can't quite see it. But so I spent most of my childhood there. And then when I was in 8th grade, my parents pulled us aside and said that we were going to go on this big trip to Hawaii. We'd never done a family trip before. We were really excited. And then immediately after that, they told us we were moving to Virginia. So I called that the pity trip because they did a bit of a bait and switch on us, which I will never forgive them for. But we had a great time in Hawaii, and I eventually got used to living in Virginia. So the picture on the bottom left-hand corner is a picture of the University of Virginia. So the round building there is the rotunda, built and designed by Thomas Jefferson, our 3rd president of our country. Both my parents worked at the University of Virginia, so I am a 2nd-generation professor, as odd as that sounds. And when it was time for me to go to college, my father really wanted me to go to the University of Virginia, but I wanted nothing to do with living in the same town as my parents. So I went to the other large state school in the state of Virginia, which is Virginia Tech. And I recognize that we probably won't have football this season, but my husband and I are huge college football fans. So the Hokies, that's our mascot, will always be near and dear to my heart. So while I was in undergraduate, I was a physics major. I knew that I liked physics. It was the science that spoke to me the most. But I was really interested in astronomy. So when it was time for me to figure out what I wanted to do, partly because I didn't want to join the real world job market yet, but partly because I wanted to learn more, I decided to go to graduate school. And specifically, I wanted to learn about astronomy. So I applied to all of the UC schools, among many other schools, but the UCs in particular, specifically because they have access to the 2 largest optical telescopes in the world, at least at the time, and those are the Keck telescopes on the Big Island in Hawaii. And I knew that if I got to one of those schools that I would have access to them. So that was my game plan. I got into UC Irvine, which is what brought me to California. And that is where I met my husband, pictured in the picture on the upper left. So we were in graduate school together. We're a family of nerds. He's an astronomer as well, just in a different field from me. He teaches at Mount San Antonio College, so we're both professors. And our 2 dogs there, Nikki and Molly. Nikki's the one that looks kind of like a weird lion terrier, and Molly is the spotted beagle. I got those dogs when I was in college. Molly passed last year. Nikki's still going with us, almost 18 years old. So they are my first fur babies. Along the way, and in fact, before I actually earned my PhD, I had my first son, Elliot, who you can see pictured in the lower right picture. And Andrew came a few years later once I was here at CSUSB. So those are my human children, in addition to my fur babies. Elliot is in 4th grade this year, and Andrew is in 1st grade this year. So I always like to talk a little bit about my path, and if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about things further, I'm more than happy to have a chat sometime. All right, so class. In this class, we're going to use the Randy Knight book, Physics for Scientists and Engineers. This is in the 4th edition right now. There are multiple volumes and versions, hardcover, softcover, loose leaf. So I didn't provide an ISBN because they can be so different, and depending on what packages you get, they come with different things. But this is what the cover looks like. We're going to be using it along with Modified Mastering Physics. So if you buy a bundle online, make sure your access code is for the Modified Mastering Physics for Blackboard. Otherwise, it will not work. So this is the most important part of this. You can buy access just through their website as well. You'll access it through Blackboard. And so that's the sort of guaranteed way to make sure that you're getting the right access. Otherwise, you'll have to work through customer service to get it switched over, and it can be definitely a pain. If you prefer e-text as opposed to physical books, you can purchase an e-text along with your mastering access code. We will be using this for the entire year. This is a year-long sequence. So don't bother buying just a 3 or 4 month access unless it is only required for you to take this first semester by your major. But 98% of you will be taking the full year, so just plan to buy the full year. You'll save yourself some money in the long run, as long as you can afford to purchase the full year now. You can rent hardcover books for $25 or so, I saw on Amazon, which can be far cheaper than the e-text in the long run. But the one piece that you need to make sure that you get is that Modified Mastering Physics. So we will use this book for both 2500 and 2510. Over the course of the year, you'll cover 30 to 35 chapters in that book. So there are a few chapters at the end, if you get the full version, that we won't cover. And in this course in particular, we'll cover the first 17 chapters. So I always like to start class talking a little bit about what is expected in terms of learning in this class. And I've started using what's called Webb's depth of knowledge to help sort of frame this thinking. So Webb's depth of knowledge basically categorizes learning and thinking into 4 different categories, with the lowest level, Webb's depth of knowledge, level 1, is basic recall. So can you recall facts, terms, properties? Can you follow a set of steps or procedures? Basically, at this point, you may not know the right answer, but you're able to follow the steps. This is sort of the rote memorization level of things. So sometimes you need to go through and memorize some vocabulary before you can move forward into actual problem solving. And so that's starting to get you into level 2, which is skills and concepts. So you're engaging more with the material, you're making decisions on how to approach and solve problems instead of just blindly following some steps. So you're starting to make some decisions in this process itself. This is essentially where we will get you very, very quickly. We'll want you to be at level 2 because you'll actually need to be solving problems on your own. So of course you'll start following the steps that we give you, but eventually and hopefully very quickly, you'll start to make decisions or need to make decisions on your own. So given a problem, what's the most appropriate formula to use for this particular problem, and then following the steps from there, that sort of thing. Level 3 is even higher order thinking. So this is strategic thinking. So this requires evidence, reasoning, and higher order thinking. So this is multi-step problems where you have to go through and not only solve the problem, but justify your responses and explain your thinking. This is where we're going to want you to get in this class. So if we're learning a particular concept, this is essentially the level that we expect everyone to get. So if you're getting those highest grades, then you've gotten your thinking into this 3rd level. And of course, over time, and those definitely students that stay in the physics major will get themselves to level 4, but we don't expect everyone to get to level 4 in this class, or even for every concept within this class. So maybe you can get that way for some of them, but this is getting into more expert thinking. And so we'll work to get students there, but just to make sure that the expectations is not going to be for everyone to get there every time. So I like this sort of picture on these different levels of thinking and learning. So some course specifics. Assignments. I mentioned before we're going to use the online Modified Mastering Physics as our homework system. You'll get 5 tries for most problems and not lose any credit until those 5 tries are up. And this is specifically designed as a learning opportunity for you. So you try a problem, you enter your answer. If you don't get it right, now you know that something went wrong. And so you need to go through and troubleshoot whatever went wrong. So this is an opportunity for you to go talk to some classmates, talk to us, utilize your resources so you can figure out what's going on and try again. Because nobody learns things correctly the first time through. It's always trial and error. And through those errors are how you go through and improve. So we want to set up a system that allows you to do that without penalty. So these homeworks will be due weekly on Thursday evenings. In addition to the online homework system, we will have you do handwritten homework. And we're going to have you turn that into Gradescope. So both Mastering Physics and Gradescope will be linked through Blackboard. But essentially what Gradescope will do is you'll handwrite your homework on a piece of paper just like you normally would. And then either scan it or take a picture, and that's what gets uploaded to us for grading. We'll grade these not only for correctness, but also the problem-solving structure and process. And these homeworks will be due on Mondays at the end of the day. So for a given week, you learn some new materials, you test it out in the classroom, you have a modified mastering homework due on that material on Thursday, and then after the weekend is when your handwritten homework will be due. So there is a schedule to these assignments. There'll be in-class work as well that we will occasionally have you turn in, but you will be getting points for that in-class work. And as I mentioned before, both platforms, Mastering and Gradescope, will be accessed via Blackboard, so you do not need to set up any separate accounts. So for grading, in order to account for the random absence, if you can't make it to class one day, you have some incorrect answers because nobody's perfect, and you're learning all of this as you go along. Your grade will be calculated assuming only 80% of the total possible points. So let's go through an example so you can get a better understanding of what I mean by this. So let's assume at the end of the semester, I forgot to update my slides, there were 1,260 total possible points a student could earn. I'm not saying this is what the expected total is for this class. This is just a straight up example. I don't change these numbers ever. So if that was the total possible points a student can earn, then 80% of those total possible points would be 1,008 points. So your grade would be calculated by assuming only 1,008 possible points. So let's take a look at 3 students. Student Con here earned 1,030 points. So if I calculate that student's grade out of the 1,008, we get 102%, but that's mathematically impossible to have more than 100%. So we cap that at 100%. Student Spock here got 960. Out of that 1,008, that turns into a 95%. And student Kirk got 740, and that turns into a 73%. So you can see how this goes through and works. And if you went through and looked at what would their grades have been if we didn't do this 80% correction? Student Con would have been in the 90s, Spock would have been in the 80s, and Kirk would have been concerned about passing. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. But so you can get an idea that this adjustment, this 80% adjustment, will boost your score. And so you're essentially getting 20% of your points for free, which is good. In previous classes where I've done this, I've had more than half the class getting A's on their assignment grades, and often 40% of those, or 30%, actually have a full on 100%. So as long as you are doing the work and trying and seeking resources when you notice that you get something incorrect, then you should be doing well on the assignments. There will be no exams in this course, and instead of exams, what we'll be doing in order to assess your knowledge is bi-weekly videos. So every other week, you'll record a video solution to a problem. On alternate weeks, you will peer review others' videos for not just correctness, but how well the solution is, and we'll provide a rubric for this at a later date. And these videos will be used to assess your understanding of the material and collectively take place of those traditional cumulative exams that you may have had in previous classes. So this hopefully will take the edge off of having to worry about taking exams in an online format. This should be a little bit more straightforward to go through and do in this distance learning world that we live in this semester. And we'll also provide more frequent check-ins and assessments so that we can tell how you and the class as a whole are doing, as well as yourselves, because you'll be getting these larger grades back more often. So more information about this process and the grading rubrics that will be used for it will be provided as we get closer to the first video assignment. So your grade then will be 40% will correspond to those video problems. As I mentioned, we'll be doing them roughly every other week. So expect 7 to 8 of them over the course of the entire semester. And then essentially everything else falls into that assignments category. So you can get an idea of how those grades will be distributed. So all of this information is in your syllabus, which we strongly encourage you to go through and see, and you'll need to utilize for your very first homework assignment. In the back of that syllabus are various campus policies and resources. I strongly encourage you to go and check those out and let us know if there's anything that we need to know. It also will provide links and information in case you find yourself needing it at any point during this semester or throughout your career here at CSUSB. Now, to finish up, you've got some first assignments. All of these are on Blackboard. One, you'll want to join Slack. So this is a communication tool. It can be utilized similar to chat or texting. So we will use this as an asynchronous way to be able to answer questions and to allow y'all to work together in groups and communicate to each other. So this will sort of take place of the normal communication that might happen in a classroom. Second, because we're going to be doing videos every other week, you'll want to make sure that you have a laptop with a camera and a microphone. It'll also allow you to most fully participate in our classroom discussions each week. So you'll want to, if you don't have a computer with a working camera phone and microphone, I strongly encourage you to fill out the laptop request to get one from CSUSB, a loaner. And if your internet's not very strong, they have hotspots that they can offer as well, but you need to request them as soon as possible. So faculty have been requesting these as well, so there's absolutely no shame if you don't have the technology that we're requesting. CSUSB is providing that to you. We've gotten federal money to do this, so please request it if your computer or electronics don't meet that standard. We will have a short Google survey for you to go through and fill out. It'll ask technology questions like the ones I just referred to, your phone number for case of emergencies, physics background, general get to know you info, things like that. And lastly, if you are eligible, please register to vote. I'll put the link to the San Bernardino County Board of Elections website on Blackboard so that you could access the information to 1, see if you are eligible, and 2, register if you are eligible. It'll also link to the state's website, so if you're not a resident of San Bernardino County, you can find the appropriate way to register for vote. This is an extremely important election, as all of them are, so I always encourage my students in the fall to make sure they're registered so that they're ready to go through and vote. And when you register, you can go ahead and request your absentee ballot, which will get mailed directly to you to make it as easy and quick as possible. So we look forward to getting to know you, and we will see you soon.